My name is Brian Brantley. I suffered a type A and B aortic dissection on May 12th of 2017 in San Luis Obispo, California. Prior to my life-changing event, I spent my life working in sports. Worked for 4 different Major League Baseball teams. Also worked for the Harlem Globetrotters, DC United's MLS soccer, before transitioning into college athletics. I was at American University in Washington, DC, University of Memphis, and then Cal Poly San Luis Obispo. And I loved my time there at Cal Poly. But in the sports business, and you kind of go, and my life was good. I had no complaints. Thought I was in good health. It was a typical day on that May 12th. It was a Friday. It was Mother's Day weekend. And that morning, and working in the athletic department, I was in development and fundraising for Cal Poly for athletics. And I had a meeting early morning meeting with my boss. And I was actually about to get in a car on that Friday to go to a wedding of a close friend of mine that was in Las Vegas. And instead of flying, I decided I was going to drive. I'm from the East Coast originally, born in Philadelphia and raised out in Westchester, Pennsylvania. But I was going to get in a car and drive to Vegas for this wedding. And so I had a meeting with my boss, and it's about a 5.5 hour, depending on traffic, trying to get out to Vegas. And I was looking forward to the drive. But that morning had a meeting first thing, and then I was going to get on the road. And at Cal Poly, the students were still in school, and students were walking by, and I just wanted to get something to snack on before I started my drive to Las Vegas. And I went downstairs. I was in Mott Gymnasium on campus. And I walked down and walked across and went to one of the food areas to get something to eat. And I bought a banana and a bagel, and just after I paid for it, I took a couple steps and I immediately got a pain, like a almost knock you off your feet. I'm surprised I stood up, but the pain in my chest, and it felt like an elephant had kicked me with its foot in my chest, and I knew I was in pain, but typical me and how I grew up, rub some dirt on it and you're fine, and you'll be okay. And I just kept telling myself not to go down in front of the students. I was more worried about that than anything at the time. But I knew something was wrong. So I tried to walk a couple steps, and I was able to stay on my feet. I walked to get like some napkins or something, and there was something wrong with my taste, but the banana was fine. So I knew something was up. I said, let me get some air. So I walked back outside, and I was still a little wobbly, but I was okay. As I walked back to the office over in Mott Gymnasium, on our first floor, we have our head athletic trainer and our training staff. And I walked over there and I said, before I go upstairs and get my stuff, because I'm about to get in the car to drive to Vegas, I said, let me go see our head athletic trainer because there's probably some heartburn. I walked down the hall to see Crystal Slover, our head athletic trainer, and to ask her if she had some Tums. And she stopped me and said, no, hold on a minute. Let's just, slow your roll, and let's sit down and let's go over this, and she starts to talk to me about it. And I was just in a hurry. I just wanted to get in the car and go. And after of just a couple minutes, she does the Jedi mind trick on me, and she convinces me, because I was stubborn and I didn't want to go and I didn't want to have a big bill and all this other stuff. And she said, well, look, here in the Central Coast, there's 2 main hospitals. So Sierra Vista and French Hospital. French Hospital is actually a heart thing, a cardiac center, or whatever, and for the Central Coast, and I did not know this. And she convinced me. She said, well, look, just go and have it checked out. If it's nothing, at least and if it's something, you're in the right place. And I couldn't argue with that logic. So she had the other trainer, Paul, to grab me, and he brought his car around, and I jumped in the car. And again, not thinking it was anything serious. I got over to French Hospital. We exchanged numbers. I checked in. They brought me back in the emergency room there. And they started running tests and did the EKG and did blood pressure and all that. And they said, okay, well, we're going to take you back for a CT scan. And of course, I'm just upset because I just want to get on the road again. And they took me back for a CT scan. They put the dye in me and the contrast, I guess what they call it. And so they put me in the machine and doing the whole thing. And then they said, all right, we'll let you know your results here in just a minute. And so I went back to the area. Wasn't really even a room, but I was watching a little golf or something on television. And then before I knew it, not my heart surgeon, but the other doctor came back, and he was standing on my left side, and I was sitting in a chair. And he's like, what you have is really bad. It's really serious. You have an aortic dissection. And I was like, what is that? He's like, well, you have a tear of your aorta, and you're bleeding out there in your chest, and the blood's kind of pulling in your diaphragm. And, and I didn't know really what was happening. Everything was happening so quickly at that point. And I just kind of asked, do you have some Tums or something? And then he said, well, the heart surgeon's looking over your chart. He'll be here in a minute. And in my head, I was like, wait a minute, heart surgeon now? Like now? And before I knew it, the curtain was pulled back. The nurses are kind of running around, and it was go time for them and go time for me. And little did I know, the gurney pulls up, they put me on the gurney, and then they started another IV in my arm. And then Dr. Camister was my awesome heart surgeon who saved my life, put his hand on my leg and goes, Brian, this is bad as it's going to get. He's like, we can do this here, or we can life flight you to Stanford. And I had been in a hospital maybe 20 minutes, 25 minutes max. And needless to say, I was by myself. So I just like, here's okay. And he just said, yep, you're in good hands. And you probably should call somebody. And I was like, okay. So I tried to call my sister, and at that time, back in 2017, it was my niece's junior prom. So my sister and my brother-in-law, we were out taking pictures and things like that. So I got my sister's voicemail. So that wasn't great. And I left her a voicemail. It's hard to leave a voicemail when you're about to go in for emergency open heart surgery. I texted my brother-in-law, and then before I knew it, the nurses were taking the phone out of my hands and saying that, they're going to take care of it. They'll be, and then one of the head nurses, who I just found out earlier this year that her name was Vicky, said, you're going to be okay. You're going to be okay. And I said, okay, I'm going to be okay. And I don't remember anything after that. And I don't remember anything after 11:30 that morning. Got to the hospital a little after 11, and I don't remember anything after 11:30 a.m. I remember correctly, it was a 10.5 to 11-hour surgery. And then so they finished up with me. I don't remember any of this, of course. My brother-in-law was the one. My family's on the East Coast, outside of Philadelphia and New Jersey and all over. But my sister and brother-in-law, my parents had already passed, and my grandparents already passed. So my sister and brother-in-law were the ones that talked to my heart surgeon, and so I was relayed all the messages from my brother-in-law and my sister. But the next morning, or next afternoon, excuse me, I was in ICU. I barely remember that day. I do know that I couldn't move my legs. I couldn't move my arms, and I could barely move my head, but I could see my feet. And I just remember thinking to myself, I'm alive. I think I didn't know if I was dreaming or not, but I knew that I had gone through surgery. I didn't really understand and was able to process because I was so heavily sedated. Then, of course, I tried to talk, and the nurses who were keeping an eye on me there in ICU, I didn't realize I was intubated, and the tubes and everything else. So they got that out of my throat, so I could talk. And then I had two coworkers of mine from Cal Poly, who weren't in athletics, but another part of the university, who were going to see me, or the first ones to see me. And they said I had 5 IVs in my neck and 4 in my arm and all this kind of craziness. Again, I don't remember much of that, but I do know a lot of people were looking for me, because that's where the story kind of gets kind of fun in that way, because they couldn't find me, and so I was a little bit of a missing person there for a bit, because I didn't make it to the wedding after all, right? So, but it was, I wasn't really able to understand what had happened until late that Saturday, and early Sunday in ICU. And then they moved me to a regular room once my vitals stabilized, and they got the sutures out of my chest and things like that, and so forth. I didn't realize, that I was connected. I didn't realize how bad it was until much later. Obviously, I didn't realize that I was connected to the heart-lung machine. I know the anesthesiologist came to see me when I was in my room and kind of explained some of the things that they did, and packing me in ice and lowering my body temp, and really just basically shutting you down so they can work, because the surgery is so delicate. And it's not to say that I keep getting reminded how lucky I am, and how the survival rate is very, 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 very low, of what I had. And so my miracle still continues, because I know most hospital stays were long. Mine happened on a Friday, again, May 12th of 2017. And I was home Tuesday night. Norma was supposed to be born, obviously, the hospital a lot longer. But I came back. My cousin flew out from Philadelphia to come get me, and brought me home. But I was still, obviously, the doctor was like, hey, you can recover just as well at home as well as here. So I went home, and I did not sleep in a bed. I did not drive a car or anything like that. I would just lean. I had an L-shaped couch, so on the crutch of the couch, I put the pillows to my left and had the blankets over me, and I would just kind of lean over when I would fall asleep. And coming out of that, for myself, was obviously a new world. I didn't really do much for the month. I mean, just walking across the room, or just trying to walk to go to the bathroom, which was a challenge in itself. It felt like I ran a marathon, because my heart wasn't really working at full capacity, obviously. So anytime you moved or walked around, it took all the energy you had. Naps weren't 15 minutes. Naps were more like 2 hours. So for me, it was a whole new trying to understand. So my family coming out to help me for this first couple of weeks. And then after that, I was on my own. I did not start rehab until about a month after the event. So May 12th of 2017, my real birthday is June 12th. And I started rehab the day after, June 13th. And I did that 3 days a week at cardiac rehab over at French Hospital, and just walking on a treadmill for a few minutes, and then they do your blood pressure beforehand, and you do it after, and then you're allowed to go home. And then I would just extend it. So I do a few minutes, and then you do a few minutes, you do a few minutes, and so forth, just to get your heart back to some. You won't ever be 100%, but you'll become close to that, as close as possible. There was, did the cardiac rehab from June to October. I was supposed to be out of work until August. Happened in May. I was supposed to be out to August, but I'm a little bit of a knucklehead, so I went back earlier than I should have, in June. And it was tough, because I could only do a few hours, and then I was wiped out for the rest of the day, and I would sleep for the rest of the day. And I was trying to hang in there, but it was really not pleasant. I still, the aspects of the rehab part from French and the cardiac center there, they were awesome. They were, the rehab process was long, obviously, for 3 days a week and things like that. But one of the things I learned through that was trying, your own self perseverance, and trying to fight through something that I didn't realize, again, at the time, how traumatic it was. until I saw my heart surgeon a couple weeks after I was released from the hospital. And they told me how bad it really was, and that they thought they were going to lose me on the table. And it's not easy to hear that. I do have, you know, I still, I don't have, I do have, I don't have nightmares about the actual event, but I do have some PTSD in regards to how the whole thing that, and not as much as I used to. And it is tough. I think sometimes you just kind of block it out and you just keep doing what you think you're supposed to be doing, what you were doing before. But it's not easy. And I think I've kind of pushed that away, and then you don't, you know, I don't dwell on the numbers and the fact that I made it and so many people do not. I just try to live as best I can, but I still do, you know, I have a great team of people now. I've got a couple cardiologists and my doctors and everybody else who's been really amazing during this time. My friends who stepped up for me, the Crystal Slover, the head athletic trainer at Cal Poly, who saved my life. Basically, she was the one who really saved my life because she convinced me to go to the emergency room, which I wasn't going to do. She got I still credit her with that because I wouldn't be here. I would have been dead on the road trying to go to Vegas to this wedding. But the PTSD that I still have is more of the aches and pains of normal everyday stuff. You know, they don't want you to run a marathon or anything like that, but you still want you to be active and busy and keep, you know, and those type of things, which I think is great. You know, I think a tough part for the PTSD part of it is just knowing that, okay, you know, somebody played touchy feely with your heart, A, and B, that now you have, you know, a really severe, beyond severe injury to your body. And when you're used to playing sports and growing up and you know, you hurt yourself and you kind of get back on your feet, you can't see your heart. You don't know what's happening. So you constantly have to get checked. And that's one of the PTSDs because you just don't know. And that fear of the unknown is what gets me sometimes. And it challenges me because I'm a little bit of a control freak. And then I had to give up control because I did not know what was happening, why it happened, and those type of things. So I did do genetic testing up at Stanford, and they've identified 30 genes that cause dissections, and I didn't have any of those genes. Now, it still doesn't mean I don't have a gene. My mom died suddenly at 65 and back in 2004, but we didn't do an autopsy with her, so she could have dissected as well. My dad died in 2008, but that was complications of diabetes. So I really have to ever, unfortunately, those days are over for me. So it's the PTSD kicks in sometimes when that happens, when you think about those type of things but I do try to focus on the things that I can do. It has been a journey over these last 5 years, now 5.5. And it has been an amazing journey. And my first cardiologist, Dr. Andrea Tackett, she was the best. I was assigned to her. I wasn't assigned. I didn't even know what I was doing and trying to get one and whatever, but they assigned me to her when I was still living up in SLO. And she was awesome at French. She's now moved on from there, but she was my cardiologist for the past 5 years, and she was absolutely amazing. Somebody who I trusted. She was on my team, and I felt she was part of my family, and she really helped me get over some of the PTSD because I could ask her a question at any time, anything. So if anybody's going through this, or unfortunately, I hope you don't, but if you are and you're watching this, you know, really find a good cardiologist because they can really help you understand what's happening, give you that reassurance that you're okay. Check things and be there for you and really understand your friends. You'll need those too, but having a really good cardiologist and doctors. And I was lucky and blessed in so many ways, from Crystal Slover, our head athletic trainer, to Dr. Cammerster, my heart surgeon, to my friends who stepped up for me my athletic department at that time at Cal Poly, who all stepped up for me, to be there for me, to drive me to my doctor's appointments or pick up meds and things like that. And, for someone who's independent, who has been independent like myself, seeing this, you're really going to have to lean on your friends and your family and your loved ones and things like that. And if you are independent, you have to accept help. That's the one thing I had to learn the hard way. Was that I couldn't do it all, and I can't be a control freak, and I have to rely on some other people to step up for me. There was just so much to that, and I'm still learning that every day. I still challenge with that and not try to do everything myself and try to be Superman. That I have to rely on my friends and family and people who care about me to help me through this, because I'll be dealing with this for the rest of my life. I'm still take meds for that to manage my dissection type A, which we repaired, and then the B, of course, descending. A is ascending, B is descending, and I'm still somewhat dissected on the descending side. But it's healing, and I'm medically managing that with meds. I take them in the morning and take them before I go to bed, and that's kind of the unfortunate side effect of this. Is now again, when you're used to just being a young person or a relatively young person, and mine happened at age 47, and you're used to just going about your business, and now you really have to think about what you're doing, when you're doing it, and those type of things, and the exertion, and not lifting anything too heavy or straining, because it puts strain on the aorta. So I've had to learn a lot and have had to grow a lot in my knowledge of what happened to me, and I'm still learning, as doctors are still learning about dissections, and thankfully we have a lot more better knowledge of what happened, and aortic dissections and things like that, and repairs. And so modern medicine thankfully is there. So I there's so many things to thank, and that helps me deal with some of the PTSD, and also some of the things that I feel when if I feel down or I feel upset or whatever. I just remind myself that I've been through worse, and that when it's it's not lost on me how lucky I am compared to some others. I'm part of some Facebook groups. So again, if you're watching this, there's some great groups out there, some that you can look on Facebook, of survivors. If you're a family member, you can learn about from what people are going through. I'm a lurker. I don't really post too much. They call us aortic warriors, and we are people, because we're not competing with other heart ailments, but having a dissection or something like that is pretty. I've learned it's pretty bad. It's if it's not number one, it's probably 1B. But it's really so for those of you who are watching this and learning about it and growing from it, or people who are like me and we're warriors as well, or a fellow warrior, you know, we all need a big group hug, because we understanding how lucky we are. And I know some of us, I was lucky enough to come back and be able to go to work again. I work at the Rose Bowl Stadium here in Pasadena, California, in the Legacy Foundation. And I'm lucky enough to come back and basically feel, if I'm not at, I'm definitely over 90%. Never be 100% again, but to be at where I am at now, and be able to do the things I get to do on a daily basis is such a blessing, and so special to me. And I know not everybody gets. We all come out differently. So I know some people, don't make it through the surgery. Some people don't, have some disabilities after the surgery, and other things, other complications and things like that. Some people have to go back in right away and get another surgery. And I think, we all have that now, that possibility. But I think we all have to understand that, people say, the next day is not promised. No, it's the next minute's not promised. We're living proof of that, or I'm living proof of that. So again, if you're a fellow warrior, I raise my glass to you and say cheers, and I give you a big hug, because we have a special bond no matter where we are, no matter what we do, which is not something you can compare with your friends. Like, hey, how's your aortic dissection? Let's see your zipper scar. It's not something you say to everybody every day. And, to the family members, to the loved ones who are watching this, please give them support. They need it. We like to act like we don't, but we do. And we can't thank you enough for helping us during this time. It's a challenge. We don't know what's happening, and we're just lucky enough to get to the emergency room. Most people don't even make it to the emergency room. But we need your help, and we just thank you so much from the bottom of our hearts. I don't think we will ever have enough words to say thank you to those who helped us go through this troubling time. And if you're struggling through it, just keep your head up. Know the doctors are going to do their best, and just rely on your friends and your family, because that's what it's all about. And I learned that. I had to learn. I learned it that you have to really lean on folks to get through something as traumatic as this, because this doesn't get the justification of how bad and how deadly it is compared to other things that are out there. We hear many other diseases and ailments that happen. People immediately think a dissection is a heart attack, and it's like, no, it's not a heart attack. It's a tear of the aorta, the inner lining of the aorta. And I know enough to be dangerous now and play a doctor on TV, but that's what it is. And it's not, my arteries were fine at the time, and they still are. Is what I've been hearing. My arteries are still great, but it's a tear, and it just becomes an aneurysm in the bubble there, and if it bursts, it's not good. So they have to get in there and get it there. So it'll be a life thing for you if you're listening and watching, and it'll be a life thing. It's not going to go away like immediately or anything like that. As I said, it's a uber intensive surgery. But the great thing that we have in our favor is the modern medicine and the doctors and the nurses and the care that we can get nowadays is just amazing. And I thank them. So for those of you who are on that side of thing, on the medical side, thank you so much. Every day is a blessing, and it's thanks to people like you. And I know for me, every day I open my eyes, I'm thankful. And it's thanks to everybody. I'm just so happy they're doing this series on dissections and folks who are going through this, because it is a challenge. It is a daily challenge. It's a minute by minute challenge. But I know we all can get through it. And I'm happy to represent dissection survivors. And I look forward to, sharing that with some others someday. And hopefully we'll have a big meetup or somewhere or something. I don't know. But it'd be great to see everybody, because it is a special thing to be a part of this survivors, and to recognize those that we lost and honor them by how we live today. So I appreciate the time. Thank you guys so much. Appreciate it. And hopefully see you at the Rose Bowl Stadium here in Pasadena, California.